Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the place where we explore the aspects of reality that attempt to hide in the dark. I'm your torch-bearing guide, Shayn, and with me today, I have the most frequent guest of the show, Charlie Robinson, back again to shed some truth bombs on the whole Epstein conspiracy. Everyone knows what the mainstream news has said about it, but what really lies below the surface? But before we get into this one today, we of course have a handful of news and updates. First and foremost, I would like to put together a Halloween special for you guys where you guys call in, you guys leave some voicemails for me on the Bizarre Reality hotline, and I want to use those calls for the show, get you guys kind of involved in the show, and do like a experience/encounter episode. So if anybody has any paranormal experiences, extraterrestrial experiences, cryptid experiences, anything like that you guys might want to share for the Halloween special, please call in before Halloween, leave that voicemail for me, and of course I will get in contact with you, make sure everything's okay to use on the show and everything. And of course, if you want it, I will give you a big shout out on the show. And something that I addressed on the last couple of episodes, but I just want to make sure that everybody hears it. I figured out what the issue was with some of the old episodes as far as a lot of people complaining about a lot of ad breaks. What had happened was when I had switched over my RSS host from Red Circle to Spreaker, which is what I currently use, apparently there was already ads embedded into my episodes. So what you guys are experiencing right now is ads from the old service I used and the new service, and unfortunately I'm not able to remove those. I'm gonna have to go back individually and remove every single episode and replace the audio file. So it's going to be a bit of a process. Hopefully you guys can hold on with me for a bit for now, but I just want to give you guys a bit of an explanation that I wasn't intentionally killing the old episode with ads, and at some point it'll be fixed, but it's going to be a long process like I mentioned, because there's over 300 episodes of this show and over 100 of Bizarre Encounters that I'm going to have to replace as I go through all of it, but it'll happen eventually. But if there's an episode that you guys really want to listen to, you guys want to get past all of those ads, you guys could always go and check out the Patreon, of course, and get ad-free over there. And the next episode of Bizarre Inquiries is going to be happening on October 2nd. If anybody wants to submit any questions, clips, articles, anything for that, then make sure you guys get it to us before October 2nd. And if you don't, then of course we will just end up passing it along to the next episode. And the last big piece of news and updates is that I am still doing the t-shirt giveaway. Still waiting for that to hit 50. It's only at about 15 right now, so you guys definitely have a little bit to be able to fill out those surveys. What you guys will get is entered into a raffle to see who might win a free t-shirt of their choice off of the Bizarre Reality Media merch store. All you guys have to do is fill out an 8-question survey. Should only take you probably like 5 minutes at the most. All your guys' thoughts and opinions, and you guys will be entered in to win, of course. And all of that goes towards hopefully helping to build and grow the show. So your guys' opinions mean a lot and they go a long way. So if you guys don't mind taking a few minutes to do it, I would really appreciate it on a personal level, of course. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com. Or you guys could always call or text the hotline, which I mentioned previously. And that number again is 313-364-1551. And if you guys might be interested in supporting the show, there are a couple of different ways you guys can do so. First and foremost, you guys can go and check out the Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free/early access and full access. You guys can also go and check out the Bizarre Reality merch store with t-shirts starting at just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20, so about average for a lot of t-shirts out there, of course. And you guys could always donate to the show directly. If you guys think the show has value, I would definitely appreciate it. And you guys can also go and check out the affiliate links with some additional discounts and credits available for you guys down there. And of course, I know that times are tough out there, but if you guys are still looking for some other ways that you might be able to support the show, there are another handful of ways that you guys can do so. First and foremost, you guys can go and check out the show on Instagram or Facebook. You guys can always leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes, Spotify, or any podcatcher you guys happen to use. And of course, I will read it on the show and give you guys a big shout out. You guys can also share the show through word of mouth with any friend that you guys think might enjoy the show or a particular episode, and maybe even find some new strange things to be able to talk about. You guys can also go and catch the show live on the Bizarre Reality YouTube and Twitch channels. And the last way you guys can support the show is by also going and checking out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, diving into a lot of the same stuff, but that show is a little bit different in the aspect that our deep dives into things. We do some interviews over there, but it's primarily us deep diving into some stuff and, of course, making some jokes and laughs along the way. So maybe just another show to get you guys through the work week. And every single thing that I mention is all available on the link tree, which is all available down in the show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome back to the show the probably most return guest of the entire show and one of my personal favorite podcasters. Please welcome back to the show, Charlie Robinson. How's it going today, man?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we've done this. We've been doing this. We've been talking about this stuff for a while. And it feels like, I don't want to jinx anything, but it feels like there's a huge segment of the normie population that's finally starting to ask questions about things. They know about Jeffrey Epstein. They don't know everything about Jeffrey Epstein. They just know that there's a guy, know what he looks like. They know he's kind of like a scumbag, rich guy scumbag pimp with a airplane in an island. And it's got some real good, juicy Hollywood-ish type stuff to it. And I'm really glad people are talking about this, but there's so much more to this guy. This guy was involved in crazy amounts of deep state activities over 40 years. And so I'm excited. We're going to get weird and talk about some Epstein tonight.
Super excited about
among
this
other
one,
things, but
This was, of course, one of the reasons why usually, when we end up setting up the show, it's kind of like a recap of all the current events going on. A little bit different this time, of course. We actually have kind of an idea that we wanted to get into. And especially with this one, this is one of those ones I wanted to hit because, as you mentioned, everybody is talking about it. It was one of those things that it was mainly like a right wing that was watching it type thing. Now it's getting to the point where left wing is watching it, everybody's watching it, but like you mentioned, they're only getting half of the narrative on this thing. So the whole reason why I want to have you on, man, I haven't heard anybody that's dived into this as much as you have and exposed the whole back end of this whole thing because, of course, they're going to keep it under the facade of simply just, this guy, of course, was a pedophile. This guy was, touching underage girls. And, of course, that's bad enough for most people, but there's a deeper aspect to it, man. So I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, I guess on the one hand, I'm happy that people are recognizing that there are guys like Jeffrey Epstein that exist out there. There's always been rich scumbags. I'm not talking about that. This is a guy. He's more than that. He's an operator. He's part of a big network. He's part of intelligence. He belongs to intelligence. That's how Alex Acosta described him.
There was a recent thing that came out, too, that was saying, I saw it pretty much got swept under the rug, that I think, an FBI informant actually came out and mentioned that he was an FBI informant. Like, there was some type of declassified documents that came out that was actually saying that for sure.
Epstein has cooperated with a variety of agencies, but he didn't do well with local law enforcement. And local law enforcement doesn't like being trumped by... no pun intended, trumped, but by intelligence, and so they had to put it on the show and put him in jail in this cushy deal. And people sort of knew him as this procurer of young girls for back massages and hand jobs and things like that, but what you find is that he's running an operation. He's running a sexual blackmail entrapment operation, and it's well organized and it's multi-jurisdictional, and you have to ask questions about who is he working for. And that leads to some answers that people most people in our circle understand. I think the general public doesn't understand what a double agent is. Epstein worked for Israel and the United States. That's provable. I mean, he didn't work for Mossad. He worked for a company. He worked for an outfit called Amon, which is Israeli military intelligence. It's a group like a sister group of Mossad, but it's not them. So, and he running all kinds of Ponzi schemes, arms, partnering on buying airline companies, Southern Air Transport, which was Air America, which was the airline that the CIA was using to run drugs out of Vietnam and Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. I mean, the CIA owned it, and then they sold it to Les Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein. It's just like crazy. It's like, I just want to grab people and go like, "Oh, come for the island escapades." If you think that's juicy, like come, But wait until I tell you what he's doing in Zorro Ranch. You know what I mean? Like down in the basement, in the bunkers,
It's a matter of controlling the narrative. They definitely see all of the darker aspects of what he was doing all of these dealings as the worst aspect of what he was doing. So of course what they wanted to bring to the forefront was the trafficking of women, because that's something that everybody can say, all right, that's the bad guy, that's the enemy. And that's usually enough for a lot of people. Like that's one of the main things that, everybody has in their mind that we need to shut down. But they have to can take into consideration that there's a lot of really strong people that are involved in this stuff. So of course they're going to kick somebody off every once in a while in order to have a figurehead for everybody to pass the blame onto. Because at this point, most people are looking at Epstein, they're looking at Ghislaine Maxwell, but they're not looking at any of the people that go up and beyond that. I mean, of course, people in our circle are, but the average person are just now somehow, 5-6 years after everybody else got the message, are actually paying attention to the Epstein files now. And honestly, I mean, most of the interest in that, I think, from the left is mainly just because they want to figure out if Trump's involved in it, because, of course, they want to be able to say, that's the bad guy, that's the bad guy, too. But regardless, I mean, I'm just happy at the fact that people are actually paying attention to that as a whole, because I feel like that's one of those first spots that you can start really chiseling at to really start breaking down the system.
I totally agree. Once you know that Jeffrey Epstein exists, then you go, hey, let me ask you a question. Do you think what would a Jeffrey Epstein operation look like if it were operating in broad daylight? But not, instead of being in Palm Beach, it was happening in Beverly Hills. What would you do if I told you that the Playboy Mansion was a gigantic entrapment operation? And people would go, holy shit. Never even occurred to me.
Think about all the cameras. Think about all the underage girls. And, dude, just throwing it in, man. All the, don't get me wrong, I love, 80s metal and stuff like that. But think about how many of the 80s bands would talk about going to the Playboy Mansion and having relations with underage girls. And, again, all that stuff's recorded. It's a blackmail entrapment organization. But I wonder if it's one of those aspects that they would sing about it in their song, so that at least if people brought it up later on, they could say, hey, we were talking about this the whole time, plausible deniability.
Yep. You want me to wear spandex? Hey, I got you on video in the grotto at the Playboy Mansion. You'll wear these fucking spandex if I tell you to.
Dude, and he played it
86.
right, man. He got to stay alive for his whole life, and stuff didn't really start. I mean, even now, there really isn't much coming out. Like, there's a couple of girls here and there that talked about a couple bad experiences they've had, but, you know, he really had it locked down. He was, I feel like, one of the first in our time that was really running that type of operation, like, to the fine pointee of where it needed to be, which obviously not a good thing, but, like, imagine if he would have been one of the people that, you know, had to get arrested and be like, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? He probably would have had the same fate as Epstein. But I feel like that's half of what doomed Epstein was his cocky ego involved with all this stuff.
He became you don't need Epstein anymore. If you want to get the goods on somebody, you can make it look like, you know, you used to have to get them like, you know, with a 9-year-old in their bed passed out. Now you just, you know, fake it. Yeah, I mean, like it's if you, by the way, if you do get them in that situation and actually get them on tape, then they know what they've done and they know that they're caught, and that's part of it. But even if you don't, you can still make it look like they did and destroy their reputation and make them fight that, or, you know, something like so. The Epsteins, you know, I mean, he's expendable. And he's a loose end too, because he knows about all the scams, and you know, and not just he walked this line between legitimacy and illegitimacy, because on the one hand he's in jail for sex trafficking a minor, and at the same time, he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. These are extremely powerful globalist organizations. And he's a member of both of them for like 15 years. So this isn't some accidental guy. This isn't some pimp. This isn't some rich Israeli abrasive asshole pedophile who likes 14-year-old girls to rub his back. This dude was connected to royalty. You know, I mean, he's connected to Ghislaine Maxwell. Her connections into the royal family opened up massive doors for him. Her father was a spy for the British Empire. And that goes a long way towards opening doors. He was also a Mossad spy. And they murdered him, and then they gave him a state funeral, because that's how they do it. So, like, the idea that, like, he just happens to have an island, or just happens to have a Lolita Express airplane, and you know, and have a townhome in the Upper East Side that's directly connected to Howard Lutnick's. Like this, they share a common wall, next door neighbors, with Howard Lutnick, Trump's commerce secretary. And so, you know, there's too many coincidences. There's too many overlapping networks, and you just, the more you look at him, the more you realize this guy was all over the place. And the least talked about, maybe most diabolical component, is what he was getting into with the population scientists. Why he was financing Martin Nowak at Harvard with $30 million for evolutionary dynamics, population dynamics, evolutionary game theory. What happens when you create a scenario and you inject a variable into the population, like COVID, and then add this and do that, you know, and why is he having all these super smart physicists hanging out with him, and what is he working on at Zorro Ranch? And it's like you go, okay. The ironic thing about this is that you hear all these things that he's into, and you go, he must just be off the charts smart. But what you kind of heard was that he was kind of a dumb fuck, actually. He didn't really know much. Like the physics stuff was way over his head, but he liked to pretend like he understood it. But all the physicists that they talked to, they go, what was your experience with Epstein? They're like, great, had a big place, big shot guy, how does come in, talk about physics, fun with physics was the thing, PHUN, fun with PHY physics, get it, haha, scientist humor, fun with physics, set up by Ghislaine Maxwell's sister's husband. So you'd have all these scientists over and what are you working on? What are you working on? Transhumanism? Why you have all these fucking population guys all around you? Are you trying to lower the population? Are you trying to raise the population? Because on the one hand, he's got something going on in New Mexico underground under Zorro Ranch that is some sort of bizarre breeding factory, right? So there's that. But he is involved in eugenics. And that is depopulation. So I think he wants to get rid of a certain type of people. He wants to repopulate the world with his sperm. I mean, he was on the record talking about that.
Which should explain the breeding facilities at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was like the sperm donor for like the breeding facilities, and he was, I don't know. I mean, it gets very unusual.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. I mean, that could even start to kind of explain even the other aspect of things. Because, I mean, this is kind of a hard way to know which way to go. Was he trying to collect this information for the sake of some government organization? Or was he also trying to collect this blackmail for the sake of maybe starting to try to push some of these eugenic ideas? Because, I mean, if you have connections, you have power, and even just simply having somebody on the flight logs, this is something I recently discussed on a show too, doesn't even mean that any of these people were involved in anything, but just because of the fact that they're now on the flight logs, people are going to assume that they're involved. So now you're going to have people that may have just been involved in this New Genesis stuff, which, and I'm not saying that that's any better or anything like that, but they were involved with this and not involved in the sex trafficking, but now they're protecting him and protecting that list because they don't want to be involved with the sex trafficking aspect of things. So again, is it a matter of using this stuff for his own power, or is he doing both at the same time? I mean, triple agent at that point, right?
Yeah. I mean, is he spying on behalf of Israeli intelligence? Yes. Is he spying on behalf of American intelligence? Yes. But who does he work for? He works for billionaire Jews.
Shocker.
That's who he works for. That's who he reports to. He is a 500 millionaire Jew himself, right? And he works for a very powerful group. Les Wexner, one of the guys, head of one of the co-founders of the mega group, the Bronfmans, powerful Zionist billionaire family, Seagrams, out of Canada. And these groups, the mega group is a known, you're required. This isn't me talking about it. This is their requirements. It's like, you got to be a billionaire and you got to be a Jewish Zionist. And so it's like Steven Spielberg and Barry Steinhardt and, I mean, just a bunch of Max Lender. I wish I had the list in front of me, but
as they may say, no goyim allowed club.
Yeah. And Epstein was a guy who was connected to them. He was connected to bankers. He was running, he was washing money for powerful people. He's, and then Ghislaine Maxwell's family, her sister Christine Maxwell runs a company called Chiliad. Chiliad is a data mining tech company. And they work with the FBI's counterterrorism data warehouse. So imagine this just for 1 second. Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in prison right now, her sister's company manages the FBI's counterterrorism data.
At a certain point, all you can really do is just laugh at this stuff, because when you actually see it in front of you on paper, you just see the absolute ridiculousness of this stuff.
Her husband is a guy named Roger Molina. Roger Molina's name doesn't ring a bell to most people. Roger Molina's dad was a guy named Frank Molina, and Frank Molina started the Jet Propulsion Laboratory with Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, and L. Ron Hubbard.
The Suicide Crew. They're the Suicide Squad.
Yep. Frank Molina, one of the guys from the Suicide Squad, his son married Ghislaine Maxwell's sister.
The even weirder aspect of that, if you want to get into the, more occult beliefs of some of these elites too, that group particularly was extremely into sex magic. So you kind of correlate that with a lot of the stuff that they were doing. And is it a matter of they were trying to traffic, or did they actually think that there was something to the concept of, ritual sex magic? Were they using these people for sex magic as part of just another facade to this whole thing?
Fuck. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I just, it's just one of those things where it's not accidental. They're all, it's not even necessarily all that surprising, right? Like, I guess if you're a rich, powerful person, you're going to hang out with other rich, powerful people. If I guess I know a lot of the people in the alternative media podcast work because I just kind of work in that industry. So maybe it makes sense. But like, I guess if you're like a blood drinking Satanist, you just hang out with other blood drinking Satanists, right? Like Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard. And you find that the families are all intermingled in with one. But, I just keep coming across these overlaps and I just go, are you really, honestly, are you kidding me? Ghislaine Maxwell has another sister, Isabel Maxwell. She's Christine Maxwell's twin sister. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Ghislaine Maxwell actually has two sisters. They're twins. One, I just talked about, who runs Chiliad, the data mining company. The other one, Isabel Maxwell, is the head of technology at the World Economic Forum.
Talk about dabbling all in the same pool.
They're twin sisters. I mean, I feel like I'm on drugs half the time when I see this stuff. I just go, really? Are you fucking with me? Like, really? Twins? Oh, twins, really? What else is she going to be in charge of? Well, her emphasis is actually the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And for those who don't know, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, according to the World Economic Forum, is the blending of man with machine into something known as transhumanism. And the sales pitch is transhumanism. That's what you're going to be hearing. That's what we've been hearing. The thing is, nobody really asks them to define the term. And I think a lot of people assume it means on the good side, robot arm. If I lost my arm in a car accident, I get a robot arm, right? On the bad side, brain chips, right? Not great. But the truth is, in 1957, Julian Huxley, the brother of Aldous Huxley, the guy who wrote Brave New World, Julian Huxley, was the head of the British Eugenics Society, and they were having a ton of bad public relations. And so he rebranded them. And he chose a different name for eugenics. He wanted to pick a futuristic name. And the name he came up with was transhumanism. So when these people are talking about the fourth industrial revolution, when Isabel Maxwell is the head of technology at the World Economic Forum, her emphasis is the fourth industrial revolution. And I know that that means transhumanism, and I know that transhumanism actually means eugenics, then we have a problem here. And people need to get straight on what transhumanism is, because it's not what they think it is. It's not you're not $6 Million Man. It's not enhancements. It's none of that shit. It's depopulation disguised as technological upgrades. And I mean, just think about like how buggy and wonky a first generation or second or third generation laptop is or whatever. Now implant that in your brain.
Or any new model, for that being said, you got to give it a year before you upgrade to the new model of anything. Like
you get caught in a subscription loop. You can't get out of it. They're beaming you with ads. I mean, like we can kind of laugh about it because it's crazy and all, but like really, like the implications of this are terrifying. And they're going to be selling this. And this is why I worry this all ties into Epstein. I mean, we've got Epstein involved in evolutionary dynamics, and financing that with $30 million is not nothing. He like financed this dude at Harvard, like built out the whole center for this guy, Martin Nowak. And the guy was disgraced, had to like leave, he got suspended from Harvard for 2 years. I think he still got paid or something, but he was like semi-disgraced, should be disgraced. But of course he works at Harvard, and you can't shame people who have no shame. So look, I get worried when I know what transhumanism means. And I see a Maxwell sister pushing it, knowing that her sister's in a prison cell for trafficking children with Epstein, who was also working on transhumanism shit. Like, it's bad enough that they're trafficking the kids. They're also trying to depopulate everybody at the same time as well, which is,
that kind of brings in another aspect too of these kids. Like, are they using them possibly as like test subjects for some of this stuff? Because assumably, with like brain chips, for example, it's going to be one of those things where it's another thing that goes way beyond what you think it would be. Meaning that they're already able to project signals, frequencies at you, different things that make you feel different ways. Like, there's patents for different technology like this. If you actually have something that's connected neurologically into your brain, essentially you're just unlocking the key where any signal, anything that they want to send in, they could possibly send in. And, I'm not saying some scary idea about like, oh, they're going to completely switch the way that your brain works, but, just like little slight things that they can start trying to put in your mind that'll start making you feel this way or feel that way. Just really, really subtle subliminal things. And that's essentially my biggest fear with this thing. Or even on the flip side of it, say you're not paying for your subscription, what happens then? Do you get a bug? Are you not able to function correctly? Are you running at half speed? Is there a bunch of ads that are going to start popping up or something in somewhere? Mm-hmm. Like, you got to think of like the after effect of all this stuff too. Like, it's not just going to be this pristine running model. Like, they are going to utilize this for the sake of control, and also on the other side for the sake of advertisement and manipulation to sell products.
Well, I'm going to really freak you out now, because one of the things that Epstein was involved with was also robotics. Do you remember Sophia the robot?
Oh, yeah, that Saudi horrifying Arabia? Ass thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and got citizenship, and you could see like kind of like the back circuitry of her head, and it was like, "Oh, Sophia the robot," and everyone kind of like
Make all the light jokes
laughed.
about ending humans, like, oh, but I'm just making jokes. Like, I don't know if somebody programmed
Right,
that in, but horrifying all the same.
yeah. Well, so the same guy who did that, Ben Gertzel, took $6.5 million from Epstein to build the little Sophia. And the little Sophia is about 18 inches tall, and it's an emotional support doll for girls ages 8 and up. And it is wired with cameras and microphones and geotagged. And it's like a nice little perfect menu for pedophiles to look and see what kind of kid they can go get, and they'll know exactly where it is because it's pinging, and it's going to tell, it's going to know if the little girl's in there crying because daddy was mean to her or whatever. And
Taking
it's just
pictures
going to
constantly
be,
when she's in moments where, I mean, creating a database essentially for even the child, even
data
before they
mining this
decide to
kid.
go and choose the child.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I mean, you, like my mind just instantly goes to the worst place. If I don't know, name a reputable toy maker. I don't know.
Hasbro, Mattel.
Mattel. If Mattel made this, I'd go,
Put that in the new Barbie.
dystopian and creepy. Not interested. But when Jeffrey fucking Epstein is building this, you have to ask questions. You know what I mean? Like you have to go like, he's not getting into the toy business. You know what I mean? He's not interested in making money selling toys. He's got hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's like, what is he doing with these dolls? What's this weirdo Ben Gertzel doing too? He's got ties to all kinds of crazy shit. So like,
it makes you wonder if this plan's still currently in motion, because you're seeing a lot, I'm sure, with a lot of these like emotional support AIs that adults are talking to. But in order to normalize that concept where somebody would even suggest doing it for their child, of course, you have to normalize it for them first. So even beyond Epstein, I mean, it seems like with a lot of these people, they're just a moving cog within the system. The cog gets messed up, you just replace the cog and the machine continues working. I feel like this is one of those things that beyond Epstein, it's still kicked into action. And again, you have to normalize it with the adults first. And then I would not be surprised if the next generation is, here's some therapy help for your kid. It can be your friend. It can hang out with your kid at home. It can go anywhere with your kid. Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show.
Well, let me tell you what Ben Gertzel is also working on. He's the chief scientist at Hanson Robotics, CEO of SingularityNet. And what they're doing is they're putting AI brains on the blockchain. And he also runs something called OpenCog Foundation. It's for the AI community. So he's the guy building the pedophile doll with Jeffrey Epstein, is also involved with putting artificial intelligence brains on the blockchain. I don't know what that means. Not going to pretend to know what that means. But I'm assuming Ben Gertzel knows what that means. But these guys that are hanging around Epstein, these scientist guys, are not like the let's cure cancer type of scientist guys. These are the creepy AI, like AI end of the world, cult like technocrat lunatic guys.
The AI on the blockchain, my assumption with that would be the whole blockchain concept is that it exists in multiple locations. So AI and the blockchain would essentially, I'm assuming, mean that they're creating an AI that if you delete the main system, it's still existing in multiple places. So it's talking about this artificial intelligence that you could probably create a database, a storage base with that exists in multiple locations. So it can't be strictly like put into one location where it could be deleted or gotten rid of theoretically. I'm assuming that's the assumption. If they're trying to continue on with this AI concept, you want to create a system that essentially can't be shut down. So that's what I'm assuming that's what they're trying to explain through this, but just in a less frightening sounding way, creating Skynet.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Congratulations.
I think we've seen that movie. We know how that one turns out.
Yeah, I mean, he had Epstein had a guy named Marvin Minsky around him, MIT scientist. This guy who is being heralded as one of the creators of AI, Marvin Minsky, hanging out with Epstein. So I don't know. I just, I'm like, we can be dismissive of this if we choose to, but like, I've decided that I'm going to pay attention to it because Epstein was paying attention to it. So there's something here. He was focusing quite a bit of his later years on this stuff.
I mean, talking about kicking stuff up too, just to kind of continue on with this whole idea about like New Genesis and how it completely just went under a new facade. When situations happen, I try to like sit back and kind of see what the full picture of it is. And it seems like, I think we talked about this on the last show, there's this like huge rise of everybody just being individually about their own race. The whites don't want the blacks over here. They don't want the Mexicans over here. They don't want this over here. And, I'm not going to say that all these races can necessarily blend together. I kind of feel like, everybody kind of has different sets of morals. So it seems like you kind of live amongst your own group for the most part. But if you build up enough hatred between these groups, where these groups essentially start seeing one as superior to the other, then you start tricking people into starting to believe these New Genesis concepts and essentially doing half the battle for you. Because if you have all the people in this country that are saying, we don't want any of the Latino people anymore, and you get them to a point where they're escalated, where they start wanting to eliminate those people, then essentially you can push people into these New Genesis concepts without even having to touch the button. You can just push people into it.
You mean like what's happening right now, where you've got half of America angry and ready to like deport 50 million people?
You got Canada that nonstop is just Indian. You got the UK that's just talking about all these people, and you got little girls running around with like tomahawks and knives trying to defend themselves against these people over there. Like, at a certain point, putting these violent people in these places, like, obviously for people that have been diving into this, like, this stuff is intentional, but for people looking at it from the other side, it's like, at a certain point, you have to expect that some of this stuff is intentional, because how would they have made it through in the first place unless some of these places were purposely intended to start putting little aspects in people's mind? Like what happened with the Venezuelan stuff in Colorado, where they were taking over these hotels, supposedly. I mean, it seems like it came and went overnight, but it's put that idea in people's minds that, if you have these people in your neighborhood, they're going to start a cartel in your neighborhood. So then you're also starting this movement where everybody's just slowly starting to push everybody out as part of the group, to the point where they feel like they need to be violent because they're dealing with the cartel at this point.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in outside of Denver. I watched that craziness happen, and it feels. Well, I know for a fact. I was going to say it feels like it's being made to happen. It is being made to happen. I know that for a fact that it's being made to happen. And so the question is why, I guess. Like, what they want us to react. I feel like I'm always very suspicious when I watch it. Like when I look at my feed on X or something, or whatever I'm getting shown, I was very suspicious that I'm being manipulated. You know what I mean? My feed shows me a lot of like 5 black guys beating up 1 white guy videos for some reason. Like my phone wants me to hate black people 100%. And and because I'm like mindful of this, it doesn't. I am of the belief that it doesn't impact me, because I'm specifically aware and like looking at it. But had I not been paying attention, like I just noticed there's a pattern. I was like, damn, I'm seeing like every other video is like somebody getting their ass kicked, and so anyway, I feel like I feel like I was getting manipulated. Do you feel like do you ever catch that sometimes where like you go, like you just catch like out of of all the things that you could come up on your feed, they just hammer you with some narrative like all.
Oh my
like,
God. I get a lot of the ones where it's Hitler speeches translated to English. And it's trying to show.
Do you?
Yeah,
I don't get those.
I get a lot of those where it's like, I was never intending to bomb Poland. I wasn't planning on doing this. Blah 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 blah. I get a lot of that stuff, dude. Like, and I think it's one of those things that it's like I fit the demographic, meaning that I'm a white male within it's in my 20s/30s. So of course it tries to push that agenda towards me. Where I get a lot of that stuff too, or like you said, where it's a lot of like racial violence. But then in between that, it's littered with like, oh, look how nice Russia is. Look at this cathedral they just built in Russia. And then the next one is all this, old Nazi stuff where it's like the Nazi jokes. Like, somebody starts talking about politics and I've had a couple beers deep. And then it has like the guy from, American History X sitting there and stuff. Just a lot of like that type of propaganda where it's like pushing people that are in that age group to, it's psychologically brainwashing people to start believing in this like white nationalist concept.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the stuff I get shown is just it's just funny. You know what I mean? And like because I have a really dark sense of humor. And I love racist jokes. You know what I mean?
Dude, I get on all the Jewish ones I get on my feed, like that some of those are really, really funny. I'm sorry, but they're funny.
I appreciate, but as a honky myself, we first and foremost, we always made fun of ourselves. On 2 different occasions, our Halloween costumes, we had professionally made basketball jerseys that said the honkies on it. and we had like short shorts, and we went out as a whole team on 2 different, it was broken up over 2 times over 3 years, and got different jerseys made both times, and just had a really, you got to make fun of yourself, so I can laugh at the absurdity of it all, but like, it's a lot.
Dude, you want to talk about some other psychological brainwashing? I brought this up on on a semi-recent show, but I definitely want to get your perspective on this one, because actually it might end up tying into the point 5 that we're going to end up doing. But have you seen this whole conspiracy about people talking about all of the different countries that surround Israel having the colors of the 4 horsemen?
No.
You haven't seen that whole conspiracy? Let me see if I can bring this one up, because I was looking this up yesterday. So let's see. I got to look through my history here. So basically, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's Kuwait, the United. Or I just want let me bring them up so I can have them all specifically. But I'll kind of lay out this idea.
That would be Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt was one of them too. I know I literally had like a full picture map of this up yesterday because I was looking this up. Syria's one. Let's see. I don't even remember how I looked this up yesterday.
Jordan.
Did you find a way to look it up?
No. Greater Israel Project.
See, I know. Let's see. See if I can find the picture that I had up yesterday, because it had some dates on it that I found kind of interesting. I guess I'll just try to paraphrase this one up so I don't waste too much time looking for it. But so there's this conspiracy theory going around that's talking about the whole 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and how it could actually mean the multiple countries that are around Israel. And the countries are Syria, Iran, Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Libya, Palestine, Sudan, Western Sahara, and Kenya. And then I know that Egypt is also in that list. But I started looking at when all of these flags actually started to become popularized. And it seems like it was created back in 1916 by, I don't remember the first name, something Sykes, who was part of like the British Parliament that was helping to try to basically create these colors in order to show that it was like their revolt against the Ottoman Empire. So you already had this thing that happened, around 1916, which I'm sure you're kind of getting what I'm hinting at here, where they started laying down this foundation for possibly a future war in the future. So then you think about the aspect of they start using these psychological brainwashing so that they could start tricking people into thinking like, oh, maybe this is something that's existed through time. You could starting to like use their religion against them. So a lot of people are saying like, oh, maybe this lines up because it's supposed to represent the four horsemen. But my suggestion is that it was intentionally placed to be the colors of the four horsemen so that they could use it later on as a facade so that they could push people into a war to actually go and invade these countries later on, because 1916, a couple of years after central banking systems started up, and the central banking system, of course, has always had interests over in this area, and it seems like a lot of those countries were the ones that they have interest in. So what my curiosity was that they set up these colors to start tricking people into thinking that there was something else going on so that they could use it later on to be able to have an excuse to invade these countries under religious means.
I don't know. I mean, they don't need a reason to want to murder their neighbors. Israel is more than happy to not even bother providing any sort of explanation for their crimes against humanity. They just bomb the shit out of Lebanon whenever they feel like it. They treat everyone like garbage. But I mean, like we have to consider the Albert Pike letter too, right? I mean, if we're going to really like go back in time and talk about like, what did he say? A third world war out of this region? Wasn't something along those lines? And so,
how many quote prophets have predicted that since the beginning of time, that this would all start as a holy war in the Middle East? And talk about a wrap up. You got also the amplification of the whole Christian movement in the United States. So if you start plastering all these people as the enemy and we have to protect Israel, then what happens next? You have this holy war that everybody's quote been talking about since the beginning of time is World War III. Well, not beginning of time, but since World War II, about possibly being the Third World War. I mean, it seems like it's one of those things that it's all intentionally lined up. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave. I kind of had this different idea about predictive programming recently that I think was kind of what's happening with this situation, that a lot of people hear predictive programming and they think that people are literally predicting the future. But another way to kind of break it down is that the whole predictive programming concept, like everybody talking about all the 9/11 stuff, like that was all plastered everywhere before 9/11 happened. It's a matter of putting the concept into people's minds. It's like setting up the dominoes and then waiting for somebody to eventually come up and knock them over. So if every single time you're talking about New York, for example, you're showing the Twin Towers, and every single movie, every single thing, eventually somebody's going to say, hey, if I'm going to plan an attack there, then, that's clearly the thing to go for. I think with a lot of this stuff, it's a matter of like, it's not that they're predicting the future. It's just a matter that they're setting up all these dominoes and they're waiting for people to have the idea implanted in their head enough to say, hey, somebody predicted this. We need to make this happen. And it was never predicted. It was just this intentional setup. Like I said, like setting up dominoes and waiting for that person to realize that there's a stack of dominoes set up and waiting for them to tip it over.
It's so much easier in retrospect, of course, looking backwards. I love talking to Ole Damagard about what some of the stuff he was doing where he was predicting out into the future, extrapolating off of like images from false flag events, and he was looking at them for clues and trying to figure out like where this was headed, and then he was saying, I'm not going to just analyze an event, a bomb that already went off, maybe literally a bomb, but I'm going to say where one is going to be. And he called the Vegas one before it happened. and because he saw the picture of this girl in a shooting like 2 weeks prior, wearing sweatpants, and down the side of her sweatpants it said Las Vegas, and she was just like crying. And he looked at that picture and he went, "There's going to be a shooting in Las Vegas." 2 weeks later, that shooting. So like predictive programming, like if this is where you get into these writers like Aldous Huxley, like I just mentioned, Brave New World, George Orwell. They're writing about the future, but it's the future that they want to bring about. So they're implanting it in people's minds as the first step towards making it happen. Because these guys are all members of the Committee of 300. Like Orwell, Huxley, all the Huxleys, Rhodes, all those guys. And so they're about multi-generational plans. They're about setting a narrative for for the next generation and the generation beyond. So
this is where you kind of get into
people.
Some of the occult aspects of like what these people dive into, where I'm always talking about on the show, everybody thinks the occult is like this magic concept, but I really don't think that there's any magic to it whatsoever. It's just a matter of knowing psychology and being able to use it with philosophy. And the whole manifesting concept is like a prime example. Everybody thinks of that as like a new age concept. Like you manifest, you think of something and it's going to create in front of you. I don't think it's that. I think it's exactly what these writers were doing, like you kind of just mentioned. It's a matter of you set it down and then people will pick it up and then they will start shaping that future. It's not that you manifested it or use any type of magic or anything like that. It's a matter of you put that idea out into the world. So now that idea is out in the world, there are going to be people that latch onto that idea and start shaping that thing. So again, I think that a lot of these people are using occult philosophy, but not in the magic sense, but in the more literal sense. And this is what the occult is. Exactly.
They understand. They know how this all works. They're just they're putting it out there because they understand, because they can put it out there. They put it out there and they understand the reasoning why they do it. Yeah. It's all part of but you know how to read it because you speak that language. Like you can understand, you can see the symbolism and you can see all of that. It's occult, meaning hidden. It's not hidden to you. Like you've been doing this a while. So, but to everybody else, they
associate it completely with magic and they try to hide under this facade of they're doing all this stuff that seems really, really woo-woo, but the root of it, I don't think any of it's woo-woo at all. It's just, again, a matter of knowing some of these sciences and how to manipulate people and use these things in a productive way. And then also, well, not productive, but productive for whatever your agenda is necessarily. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like once you see through it, it's kind of hard to like unsee it, but you go crazy because you're pointing at this thing that nobody else sees. And it's like plain as day in front of you.
I've always described it as those paintings that you see that are all just a bunch of spots, and you stare at it and you kind of cross your eyes a little bit and then you go, an elephant. I see it. There's an elephant right in the middle. And you can have someone standing right next to you and they go, I don't see the elephant. And they'll never see the elephant. And that is the best way I can describe it. Once you see the elephant, you can always see the elephant. But not everybody sees it.
That's even kind of going into one thing that people hear all the time when it comes to the occult is they have to say what they're doing, but you can't be aware of what they're saying that they're doing. It's not that magic concept. It's simply the aspect of subconsciously putting stuff into people's minds. Like people aren't reading between the lines. They're putting this magic principle on this concept that's plain as day and straight simple. It's exactly manifesting. You put the idea out, But if you say, this is what I want to happen, then people are going to say, nope, I don't want that to happen because you just said that. But if you just put it out in the world, then people will start shaping towards that thing. They have to not be aware of it. That's like you were saying earlier, like you break the programming if you're aware of the programming. You don't fall into the algorithm if you're aware of the algorithm. Like this is exactly the occult concept that people are always hearing about, but they don't see it this real world practical. They again leave it in this woo-woo concept, like they're projecting like thoughts into people's heads using, magic or telepathy and stuff like that. But it's a lot more simple than that. It's again using psychology.
It doesn't have to be that. No, it doesn't have to be any of that, right? It does. It's not mind control, MK Ultra. I mean, it could be. I just had Kathy O'Brien on, so it could be that, but it doesn't have to be. Like your television's controlling your mind. You know what I mean? Like you walk through Target, you're getting subliminal messages telling you not to steal. I mean, they had that in Kmart in the 80s. I mean, like buy, don't steal. There's like stuff that was subliminal. I mean, so like it's been around. It's just that now we're in like the Wild West of mind control, because you can't, it used to be like, well, I'll believe it when I see it. Right. And now like we're in like an AI world. And like the repercussions of that means that like you have to, you are probably from this point forward always not going to ever be able to say you're 100% sure of anything that you've seen if it was online. It might look good and it might be good, but you're always going to know like it's possible, but it could be fake. And as we know, good propaganda isn't 90% lies. It's 5% lies.
I mean, at that point, could the whole intention of AI, because a lot of people talk about the fact that it doesn't work as it's intended to, could the whole push and narrative behind AI could just have been simply to be able to make it so that the one thing that they couldn't control information on, the internet, now they can put a grain of salt in everybody's minds about the fact of, this could be AI created. But now they're getting to the point where, some people can tell it apart, some people can't, but maybe the whole entire ploy of AI was all intended as a propaganda arm to make it so that you couldn't trust anything you found on the internet. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, the internet was the loose cannon to them. Like, that's what made it so that all these plans weren't able to work, was because people were actually able to communicate in real time. So what's the best way to counteract that? Make it so that nobody can believe anything. Yep, poison the well. Boom. Like, everybody's wondering what the intention is of AI, and again, it's not working as practical as they think it is. Could it have already served its purpose that they intended in the first place, and that's why so much money was invested in it? Wasn't because of the actual operation, but just the ability to be able to manipulate the internet as a whole?
That could just be one of the reasons why. I mean, it also softens up people's brains. It removes people's abilities to, work out certain problems. I mean, you can increase productivity. You can also stunt your learning development. I mean, there's some real downside to it. So I don't know.
I mean, I'm already starting to see there's advertisement companies that are basically starting to say, oh, on AI, we can start pushing it where the algorithm will start like spotlighting your product and only say good things about your product. So now, of course, like most things, you're going to assume that industry is going to get involved in it. So now AI, we already knew was, biased towards, woke ideology, but now you have to take into consideration that any question that you might ask AI is going to be biased towards whoever is paying the most towards that, which again is inevitable with almost anything. But we finally seem to have hit that point with AI where everybody was questioning like, hey, could I ask AI what the best of this item is, what the best of this item is? And now we're at the point where it's not pulling from the record of, people on Reddit anymore that are, honestly discussing these things and coming up with the best solutions. Now it's coming up to whoever's paying the most. Boom, their product's going to be at the top of the list now.
Right.
So now any question that you ask, because it seems like now we've gotten to a point where Google, you search something up, the first thing that pops up at the top is an AI overview of whatever you're trying to search. So now how many people I mean, we already have a problem now with like news articles, for example. People read the headlines and they don't actually read the article and realize that, you know, the narrative of the article has been flipped with that headline and it doesn't actually mean what the headline says. Now you're going to have that problem where anybody does any basic Google search. They're going to read the first, here's the highlighted line for you from AI, and then they're not going to even know that they're receiving an unbiased opinion on something.
That's reality. That's what we've done. We've become like a soundbite world, and people see that summarizer right there, and they go, "Yep, that's good enough for me." Boom, got it, understood. And that's a function of AI, right? You can do that with you can have it summarize articles. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. I'm not a gadget guy, so I don't try all this stuff out. You know, I know some. I do know some guys. We're building. By the way, we're building just kind of for fun, like the equivalent of like in our virtual garage, I suppose, a large language model that's going to be like super based, with all of the 15 years of activist post previous articles fed into it, and books from like people who I know, you know what I mean? Just really give it some context about some stories and see what we can do with that. I've got some techie guys that are salivating about that opportunity. And so we're working on that. I mean, I just think of it like a super based AI chatbot search engine or whatever, however you want to look at it. But it's like type in Oklahoma City, and then it brings up all these articles, and it brings up all these podcasts, and it brings up, you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm envisioning. And I'm not techie. I'm not a programmer or anything like that. I just understand that would be a valuable tool to have. And I've got the content for it now from the activist post acquisition. So
it's like the Brave of AI at that point. You know, you can actually search things and it's not going to give you whatever they want you to see, you know? I mean, That's definitely something that needs to be created, because there has to be a bounce back to whatever they're creating on the other side of this, because we're already getting to a point, I mean, kind of bring stuff around back to the eugenesis stuff, to the new Genesis stuff. You're already getting to a point now where even using AI, again, people are using these things to communicate, to talk, to feel like they're in a relationship, all of that. So, I mean, just continuing with that, that's also helping with that movement, because how many people now are not necessarily going to have an interest of, you know, going out and talking to a female or going out and talking to somebody else, because they have the ability to sit at home and have somebody that's going to, you know, sit there and boost up any opinion they have, tell them that they're right, tell them that they're never wrong. And then in the next step, I mean, you get into creating something like the mini Sophie bot. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's only an inevitable amount of time before we end up starting to create robots that people can have relations with that have the AI components already built into them. And once we get to that point, I mean, isn't that the end goal of a lot of these, you know, new Genesis is make it so people aren't repopulating? I mean, two birds, one stone. You get to push on the transhumanism movement, and you also get to do some of the old world, you know, dwindling down the population numbers very easily, all in one swift move.
I just know that when the AI robot fuck dolls come out, they'll come out in Japan first.
Oh, 100%. Because their population needs that, you know? They already have a problem where, you remember the virtual headsets when those came out, and then they created that robot that would actually, you know, pump you while you were watching some of that stuff? Yeah. That was the start, it seems, to when their population problems really started. So imagine if they have a bot that'll actually interact with you instead of watching a virtual girl on a headset. Like, oh, dude, Japan is done if that gets created. Like, they're just done.
I know. I love Japan. I was there last year. It was fantastic. But yeah, they love robots. I mean, they're early adapters in porn and robots. And when you have porn robots, I mean, I had
an anime haircut to one of them, and dude, the deal's done.
Yeah.
There's already families getting ruined over pillows over there that have anime girls on them. So, I mean,
I saw that. It's very sad and very weird, and I don't understand the anime stuff, but
Inquiries About Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back. So let's hop right in.
I goof at that stuff, but the rest of Tokyo, awesome. Just awesome. And our dollar goes so far over there. It's like getting in a 30-year time machine as far as prices for everything.
Dude, that's why they all come and do business over here. They just bring it back and it goes way farther. That's why you hear about this, typical motif of the rich Japanese businessmen. It's probably really easy to convert it from American dollars to Japanese dollars and make a pretty penny.
we were there last April and just perfect timing. We were getting 155 yen to the dollar. So we were like, we just went out. We were like, what's the, trying to do the math in our heads. And it was like, go down for a nice sit down lunch, chicken teriyaki, soup, salad, rice, drink, all that. $5, $6.
Dude, they got something set up over there, man.
Just a nice break for once. We just kept saying that the whole time. We're like, it's just nice to feel like you're not getting ripped off every time you go out.
I feel like it'd be nice just to have a quick change of actually going to a city and actually seeing it, not littered with trash and shit on the streets. Like
Beautiful
literal shit.
City too. Yeah, no, Tokyo, nobody was having a mental health break. I didn't hear, nobody was honking their car horns. Didn't see trash anyway. That's the problem. There are no trash cans. You have to walk around with your trash until you get home. I had a plastic water bottle in my back pocket for 3 hours. I could not find a trash can. But I'm telling you, when you go to a place like that and everything's organized, you just appreciate it. Everything works well. Everything lines up properly. And they do things way better, and you go, oh, why don't we do it that way? It just, I don't know, man. It's simultaneously a great place to go, but also makes you very frustrated because you feel like we could do all of this if we weren't wasting our money and time on bullshit like wars all over the place and high-speed rail trains that Gavin Newsom's trying to build in California that haven't gone anywhere. I mean, we squander our money on such pointless, ridiculous stuff.
Japan is what the U.S. could be if
Tokyo's
Tesla wasn't repressed.
Kicking ass.
Japan is exactly what the U.S. would be if Tesla actually didn't get repressed.
Right. Right.
Well, I guess kind of starting to wrap up towards the end, but I wanted to bring this up with you because this is something that popped up today, and I don't know how much you've seen about this, but have you heard about the shooting that happened at the Christian school? I think that was today, right? If I'm not mistaken, or within the last couple days.
Catholic school.
Yep.
Yeah, I did. I saw that today. Yeah, by some trans shooter.
Did you see the clips where they had all the different things written on them?
Yes.
Dude, the second I saw that, all I see is this was set up. This seems like the same scare tactics that they're always using. Especially what sealed the deal for me was the fact that they had a picture. It was one of the few that I got released that had something messed up written on almost every single one of the clips. Something along the lines of where's your God now? I'm coming for you kids. Stuff like that on there. Second I saw that, dude, complete setup. There is no way in my mind that wouldn't be the photo that would be one of the ones that they wouldn't release if it wasn't some type of an operation. Not to mention the fact that, of course, you have the typical motif when it comes to a lot of these shootings lately. And I was just waiting for the attack when they were going to do it to some type of Catholic or Christian or, something that's in that field schools. But dude, I'm sure you probably have a different mindset on this, but dude, all I can see is PSYOP on this one.
I would keep your eyes open for shoes and bikes.
They're claiming that there's a manifesto, so there's another one. But the question is, are we going to see the manifesto?
There's always a manifesto. There's always a manifesto when you're setting up a psychological operation. This is low. I mean, I don't know. We'll watch how it plays out. We'll see what the narrative is. But it feels like an op, and we're starting to fill up our bingo card with a lot of trans shooters. Not that I'm surprised, because, I think that the drugs that they give these poor kids are really screws them up. And I don't think they're thinking straight to begin with if they think that they're born in the wrong body. And, and I don't, I don't want to pretend to know what's going on in their heads, but if you're a boy and you want to be a girl and you're ready to like transition, you're already not well. If we're being honest.
But you can't address it that way, because instead it just gets solidified rather than saying, all right, like what's the trauma that caused you to feel that way? Like there's a reason why a man wants to feel like a girl, and it more often than not seems to be related to some type of childhood sexual trauma with a lot of this stuff.
Unfortunately, yeah. And it doesn't mean that they're all gonna be shooters, but it's not. You're not in a good place if you're thinking of changing genders. You're just not, and you're about to make a permanent decision about a temporary feeling, and this is no tattoo that you're gonna regret. This is permanent, never-ending, life-altering, body-scarring Frankenstein shit, man. I just, I don't know. I mean, I 6 times more likely to kill themselves, 3 times more likely to wind up in prison, bounce around jobs, 20% don't work, never worked, I mean, this is not a recipe for success.
I mean, it kind of pushes in the whole transhumanism agenda, because I've thrown this idea a few times that if you've manipulated your body so much in the physical reality that you are now uncomfortable in your body and all you ever wanted to do was become the opposite gender, and somebody comes along one day and says, hey, you can go into this virtual reality and you can be the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your life, then how many people that have gone through this stuff are going to take that opportunity and basically choose to live within this system just because of the fact that they can, quote, feel like their true selves?
It's a lot of people that are missing something, and they're seeking it, and they're getting rewarded. The reward system is very wonky right now. The trans agenda is being normalized and promoted and elevated, and you have to ask why at all, but why now? Why is it being and aggressively being pushed, like shoved down your throat, like you're like, say you love the trans movement or I'll kill you. You know what I mean? like wild shit, and flags everywhere and parades and pride. And you just look at it and I just go, like, this feels like an op.
Just the fact that Disney is intended simply to be, kids' media. And they are one of the hardest pushers for that stuff, where almost any grocery store you go to, they have a section set up where it's a bunch of Disney stuff that's in rainbow colors. It's like, all right, you don't see a problem with that? The fact that it's sexuality mixed with a child's thing?
Yeah, I see the problem, but, Disney is, well, it's Disney. They have a dark history. You know what I mean? Like, they're they're not free from sin for their past, but I don't know.
Seems like we've gotten to the point where we're are you familiar with the Universe 25 experiment?
No.
So basically the concept was, back in the 70s, this guy created this rat utopia. And the whole intention was, if everybody has everything that they need, what would eventually end up happening to the society? And as many times as you set up this experiment, the same results would end up happening, which basically resulted in people not having a place in society, and in turn they end up secluding themselves, sectioning off themselves, to the point where he would notice that the female rats would sit up at high points and they would constantly just groom themselves. The male rats would basically just exist amongst the male rats, and they would stop caring about grooming or taking care of themselves anymore. And you just see this straight correlation that happens with society that we're happening with now, which everybody talks about, this whole aspect that societies tend to crumble after we start getting into this gender ideology. But what I think is that, just like this experiment kind of suggests, is that once you reach a point with a society that you, quote, reach a utopia in the aspect of everybody has, for the most part, the basic necessities that they need, then you get to a point where people start losing their role in society, and in turn they end up going crazy and trying to fill these other gaps and trying to fill that empty hole with other things, and in turn society will collapse from this. And what I'm thinking is that it's not necessarily that it always gets injected in. I'm sure that they've seen this enough times that at a certain point it starts getting injected in, but I think inevitably society will continuously get to this point. Like, even if we have a reset tomorrow and everything goes great, 200 years from now, 300 years from now, once we reach that utopian point again where everybody has what they need, then people will start falling into a point where they don't know where they fit in with society, and eventually society will start collapsing on itself again. And I think this guy ended up conducting this experiment like a pretty good amount of times. I think it was like in the 20s or 30s, and it inevitably ended the same way every single time. And it seems like we're essentially lining up this experiment with mainstream society now.
Yeah, I wonder about UBI as well, and what that does to the reward mechanism in the brain, you know, when people are getting money for nothing and they're chicks for free, and they're not having to do anything for it. And where is their place in society? And some people don't care.
Some people don't even have passions anymore. Like, I mean, you talk about the Star Trek concept that everybody has what they need, but people have a passion that they want to do, which is what makes society continue on. And it seems like now, how many people do you ask? And it's like nobody has hobbies anymore. Nobody really has a passion anymore. Like, we're getting to a point where, like, maybe we could potentially get to a Star Trek future. I mean, whatever the specifications might be of that, but without people having their motivation to do good, to explore, to expand, then what are we even doing here? You know, that type of society wouldn't work unless people still have those passions and drives to do something for the sake of knowledge, or do something for the sake of exploration, or simply do something for the sake of discovery, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what would you do if you didn't have to work?
Honestly, probably read, write, research, do podcasts, try to talk about all this type of stuff. Like, I mean, honestly, if I didn't have to work a normal job, then this would probably become my job, because this is what I enjoy doing. But that would still give me like direction. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have that, so they wouldn't know what to do with themselves. They inevitably probably just sit around playing video games and just not conducting anything or contributing anything to society at that point.
Have you ever lost a job? Because I have.
Oh yeah.
And you go home and you're like, and it's awesome for like 3 days,
3 weeks tops.
and then it's like, I gotta do something. Like, I gotta answer my pants. So, I would need to, that's kind of how I feel too. My answer would be the same. I'm doing what I'm doing. If it was, this is what I do now for a living, right? Writing books and podcasts and activist posts and natural blaze and other stuff that I've got. I didn't tell you. I should send you this. I'm a co-owner of a sports media training company, and.
Is that the same one that you used to work for before with like the NBA and stuff?
Yeah. And my business partner, my co-owner, was on Hard Knocks this week, the Buffalo Bills. Have you ever watched Hard Knocks? Are you a football fan at all?
I'm more of a hockey guy more than anything.
Okay. But you know what Hard Knocks
but I know
is,
what it
right?
is,
Like the behind the scenes. Yeah. In the training camp. And they had they did a 3-minute segment showing my partner working with doing improv with these guys, but doing like Josh Allen, MVP of the league last year, quarterback, just having fun with them. And I got word of it. From a buddy of mine is like, dude, you guys got some love on HBO. And I was like, what, really? Let me see. I watched it and I was like, it was good. My partner's brilliant. He's brilliant.
So you got so much. You got your foot in a little bit of everything, man. I swear.
Yeah. But again, like I don't run that. I don't run the day-to-day operations of that. I did. I moved the company to Florida and opened a division in Florida and did all that. But that was over 20 years ago. So, and we've been doing this for a long time. 24. I started in 2001. I started right after 9/11.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. Do you think, I guess kind of somewhat of a closing question before we get into the 0.5 episode, just out of curiosity, like, did your mind already kind of work in this conspiratorial, philosophical, psychological aspect before you did that aspect of, trying to help people with being able to present themselves to the media? Because I feel like doing that would probably be a pretty good opening door to how easily a lot of these psychological tricks would work. Simply, the one that you told me a long time ago about the guy who was really uncomfortable in front of camera, and all he had to do was put a basketball in his hand, and then all of a sudden he felt comfortable because he felt like he had, one, something psychological, something between him and the camera, so he felt like there was a barrier, and two, just something he could play with to feel comfortable. But after doing stuff like that, did you notice that it opened the door for you a lot with a lot of these psychological aspects of what their mainstream media is trying to do to people and all these different like tricks and conspiracies, and just open the door for a lot of this stuff?
Well, I could see them. I could see them doing the tricks. I could watch them talking in a certain manner. I could watch it. I knew what to look for. So if it's like watching a magician when you know how they do all the tricks, it's like, it's a different thing. So, and that's what we would teach our guys, it would just be like, you've got to look at this from the media's perspective. That really was where I learned my distrust of the media. I had, there's actually, since we were talking about it, I had this Canadian director, T. Snyder, following me around from in Mexico, from an Acapulco to Nashville to Denver to Pueblo, and the angle, and he was doing a mini documentary, and it just came out, so it's out and you can watch it. But the angle he took, that he wanted to take with it, was exploring my sports background. Where I came from, and so, but he was here. He was in my office. I mean, he was filming over my shoulder, filming everything, and I took him to a Rockies game and explained to him like what I had done with sports and where that came from. But that's where my distrust from the media came, because we're working with these unsophisticated young athletes, and they're pleasers, and they want to be open with these media guys, and we're just trying to spare them the misery of thinking that one of these guys is your friend and saying something that you kind of think is off the record and it's not. And then it's the front page of the sports section. Then you look like an asshole. And then coach thinks you're talking shit about him behind his back, just bad. So, and the media has no problem doing that to these kids.
Oh yeah, easy to manipulate, because they trick them into those positions.
Totally. They lull them into a false sense of security, think that they're broing out with them, get them to say something, wait one day, and then boom,
What do you think about that player on your team that always misses the pass? What do you think about your coach?
Yeah.
And then they're like, they got these headlines that are just like, oh yeah, this person is a complete shit player, and that's the headline now because they got him off the record, like because they bought him out to dinner real quick, like, oh, let's have a dinner, let's just chat.
Yeah. So we when you that's my perception of the media. They're diabolical shitheads and should never be trusted at all under any circumstances. That goes for sports media as well. That's just my baseline. There are some that are better. There are some that aren't bad. Let me be clear. But, I'm now in the media with Activist Post. So, I have like a duty and responsibility to make sure that that we've got our stuff straight. Like I actually do care about my reputation, unlike the mainstream corporate whore press.
I was going to say, you're not paid off. So big pharma. Yeah. Don't print that story. No problem.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So we get aggressive over at Activist Post. We talk about the real stuff.
Well, I guess talking about real stuff, that can definitely link into what we're going to get into in the Point 5 episode for anybody that wants to come and check that out over on the Bizarre Reality Media Patreon. Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. Let's hop right in. But before we wrap up this episode, of course, I always have to make you leave with some words of wisdom for the listeners. So if there is any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners today, because I know that you're absolutely full of them, what might it be today?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm working on a new book. And this is more of like words of wisdom to myself, there's something to be said for persistence, because I've started and stopped this book on 3 different occasions, and I kind of like it's a running joke in my house because my answer to something once before was like, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. How do you write a book? 1 paragraph at a time. And sometimes it's just so overwhelming because I've been assembling and not just necessarily writing, but just assembling everything together. And it's sometimes it's just, it's so overwhelming. I just have to remind myself, like, just do one section at a time, right? Don't think right. But if I allow myself to kind of pull back and look at the massiveness of it all, no bueno. I need to stay focused on the task at hand and just grind away like I've been doing every day, a little bit, grind away, keep going, more. And then you eventually get there. And then when it's done, I'm not writing for a while.
I mean, that's some pretty good universal words of wisdom for a lot of people, because I see this all the time, even at work every day, doing these like production type tasks. People will look at the whole job as a whole and they'll freak out and feel like they're not able to do it. But it's a matter of knowing how to compartmentalize and section things off to hit one little piece at a time to build up to that bigger project. Because the big project isn't just one swift move and it's over. It's a bunch of little components that build up to something bigger. So any project you're trying to do, whether it's a podcast, writing a book, doing a task at work, whatever it is, break that big thing down into smaller components and start working at those piece by piece to build up to that bigger foundation of what you're trying to work at. Like, that's some pretty good universal words of wisdom to realistically any project that you're working on.
Thanks. I just thought of it.
Hey, worked perfect, man. I got to put you on the spot. And you've already, of course, mentioned Activist Post. You've already, of course, mentioned your books and Macroaggressions. If anybody wanted to come and find all of the awesome research, all of the awesome work, and all the awesome content you're putting out there, man, where can everybody come and find all of your stuff?
Macroaggressions.io is the best place because there's everything, the books, the podcasts, and the news sites. We've got Activist Post and Natural Blaze podcast. We've got Macroaggressions, Union of the Unwanted, which we did a great one on Monday night with a director panel and talked about getting financing and distribution and things like that. That episode is a banger. And I also do a show called Day Zero, which we call a comedy show for legal reasons. And
if it's satire, you can say whatever you want, right?
Holy moly, man! We're about to hit our 200th episode next on Sunday, so that'll be cool. That's Day Zero. You've been warned in advance. Sorry, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And for all the listeners that enjoy the conversation, make sure you guys stick around to check out the 0.5. And if not, then I guess I will catch all you guys on the next one. And Charlie, I appreciate you, as usual, for always coming on the show, sharing your knowledge, and laying out all the awesome information for the listeners, man.
Thank you.
If anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I am the most active on. Or you can also get a hold of me through the submission form, which is up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is by calling or texting the Bizarre Reality Hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description. And just like all of the other links, they are available down there and off of the link tree. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show's connected some dots in your own reality. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. I'm Dr. D's taking a watercraft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey. With a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities,